Okay, good afternoon, everyone. So, dear colleagues, please take the seat so we can start our committee meeting. As usual, we start with the adoption of the agenda. If there are no objections, the agenda is considered adopted, and also the approval of the minutes of the meeting of January 12, 2023. Now I should have, read some announcements, but to save time, I will read the announcements in tomorrow's meeting so we can jump directly to the main event of the day, which is the monetary dialogue with Christine Lagarde, President of the European Central Bank. So I really want to welcome President Lagarde to this first monetary dialogue in 2023. Our monetary dialogue today is again taking place in a very particular and challenging economic environment marked by strong, albeit moderating inflationary pressures. The uncertainty remains high and the financial stability risks have increased, with a warning coming from the US via the Silicon Valley Bank collapse. Since the last monetary dialogue on November 28, the ECB's Governing Council has continued on its monetary policy tightening path. Key interest rates have been increased 3 times by overall 150 basis points, which brought key interest rates to their highest level since October 2008. As of March, the ECB embarked on the quantitative tightening path via limiting reinvesting of maturing securities for the first time ever in the euro area. The latest ECB staff projections lowered the inflation projections over the whole forecast horizon and lifted the outlook for growth in 2022-2023. Overall inflation has been revised down to 5.3% in 2023, 2.9% in 24, and 2.1% in 2025. Yet, underlying price pressures remain strong as core inflation continued to increase in February, and ECB staff expected to average 4.6% in 23, which is higher than foreseen in ECB's December projections. So today, the policymakers face a very difficult task. The right policy mix is crucial when combating high inflation, since there might be important side effects like economic slowdowns and financial stability issues. As far as the latter is concerned, President Lagarde, during her press conference, clearly stated that currently there is no trade-off between price stability and financial stability, but that in any case, the ECB stands ready to provide any kind of additional facilities if needed. So let me say that financial stability is not only a matter for ECB, it is something that concerns all regulators, supervisors, and legislators as well. The collapse of the Silicon Valley Bank reminded us about our homework by underlining the need to translate faithfully the Basel standards in our jurisdiction and to finalize and improve the bank crisis management framework, including the third pillar of the banking union, the European Deposit Insurance Scheme. So, as for today's meeting, 2 topics were chosen by the ECON committee coordinators. One, quantitative tightening in the euro area, and the second topic is the prospects for monetary policy 1 year into the war in Ukraine. As usual, all briefing papers that were prepared by the EP panel of experts are available on the ECON Committee's website, and some of them were presented last week in our usual preparatory meeting. Before starting, let me briefly recall the procedure. Introductory remarks by President Lagarde of about 10 minutes will be followed by a first round of questions, 1 slot per political group, longer slots for speakers in the first round of Q&A with a follow-up question allowed. So there will be 1.5 minutes for the initial question and 3 minutes for the answer, with the possibility of a follow-up question of 1 minute maximum, and then with the 2 minutes maximum for the answer. And then there will be a second round of questions without a follow-up, 1 minute for questions and 3 minutes for the answer. I really ask you to respect the time given to you. Just as a reminder, the monetary dialogue today will be followed by a public hearing with Madame Lagarde in her capacity as chair of the European Systemic Risk Board. So, President Lagarde, we are now looking forward to hearing you.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much for these opening remarks that you just made. And thank you to all of you present today for your interest in this matter. I'm very happy to be back in the Parliament to discuss the ECB's monetary policy shortly after last week's Governing Council meeting. More than 1 year has now passed since that February morning when we all woke up to the horrifying news of war in Europe. The Russian invasion of Ukraine, which you have selected as a topic of this hearing, is first and foremost a human tragedy for the people of Ukraine. And in the face of this senseless atrocity, they have shown remarkable resilience and determination. And I would like to quote a former president of this European Parliament, José María Gil Robles, who sadly passed away last month. He said, "The future belongs to those who are prepared to make the effort to hear the voice of hope." As Europeans, we need to continue hearing the voice of hope coming out of Ukraine and support the Ukrainian people in their struggle for freedom, democracy and peace, fundamental values of our Union. It is clear that solidarity, especially during this crisis, makes us stronger and more resilient. So we must continue to nurture our ability to act together, which has again proven effective over the past year. We have managed to reduce our dependency on Russian pipeline gas by roughly 80%, and gas prices have now fallen back to levels below those seen before the invasion. In my remarks today, I will start by discussing current market developments and then proceed to outline our assessment of the euro area economy before explaining our latest monetary policy decision taken last week. But let me point out, in the face of the most recent developments, that I welcome the swift action and the decisions taken by the Swiss authorities. These actions are instrumental for restoring orderly market conditions and ensuring financial stability. Let me also remind that we are monitoring market developments closely and stand ready to respond as necessary to preserve price stability and financial stability in the euro area. The euro area banking sector is resilient, with strong capital and liquidity positions. In any event, the ECB's policy toolkit is fully equipped to provide liquidity support to the euro area financial system, if needed, and to preserve the smooth transmission of monetary policy. I will now turn to the outlook for the euro area economy and monetary policy. Euro area activity stagnated in the fourth quarter of 2022, according to Eurostat's latest reference. The outcome was slightly better than what we had expected in December. However, private domestic demand fell sharply. High inflation, prevailing uncertainties, and tighter financing conditions dented private consumption and investment, which fell respectively by 0.9% and 3.6%. Survey indicators for economic activity have steadily improved over recent months, coinciding with reduced concern about energy shortages and price increases. These factors, coupled with the ongoing support provided by fiscal policy and the continued resilience of the labour market, are expected to support a recovery over the coming quarters. Accordingly, projected growth for 2023 has been revised up to 1% in our latest staff projections. which also foresee growth of 1.6% both in 2024 and 2025, which is a slight downgrade from where we had our projection last time around. It has to be stressed, though, that the ECB staff projections were finalized before the recent emergence of financial market tensions. As such, these tensions imply additional uncertainty around the baseline assessments of inflation and growth. Turning now to inflation, it has decreased from its peak in October, owing to a sharp drop in energy prices, and stood at 8.5% in February. Input cost pressures, which are partly related to the past surge in energy costs and the impact of supply bottlenecks and reopening effects, are all weakening. However, accumulated price pressures are still spreading through the economy with a delay. As a result, inflation, excluding energy and food, has continued to increase, reaching 5.6% in February. Wage pressures have strengthened on the back of robust labour market and employees aiming to recoup some of the purchasing power that they have lost to high inflation. Moreover, many firms have been able to raise their profit margins in sectors faced with constrained supply and resurgent demand. The energy price shock implies a hit to the domestic economy, which should be absorbed by both firms and workers in order to ensure that it does not lead to a spiral of upward price and wages adjustments. In the baseline of our latest staff projections, headline inflation has been revised downward, mainly reflecting a smaller contribution from energy prices than previously expected. We now see inflation averaging 5.3% in 2023, 2.9% in 2024, and 2.1% in 2025. At the same time, underlying price pressures remain strong. Inflation, excluding energy and food, is expected to average 4.6% in 2023, which is higher than foreseen in the December projections. Subsequently, it is projected to come down to 2.5% in 2024 and 2.2% in 2025. As the upward pressures from past supply shocks and the reopening of the economy fade out, and as tighter monetary policy increasingly dampens demand. As inflation is projected to remain too high for too long, the Governing Council last week decided to increase the 3 key ECB interest rates by 50 basis points, in line with our determination to ensure the timely return of inflation to our 2% medium-term target. The elevated level of uncertainty reinforces the importance of a data-dependent approach to our policy rate decisions, which will be determined by our assessment of the inflation outlook in light of the incoming economic and financial data, 2, in light of the dynamics of underlying inflation, and 3, in light of the strength of our monetary policy transmission. The key ECB interest rates remain our primary tool for setting the monetary policy stance. The reduction of the asset purchase programme portfolio, the second topic of today's hearing, is part of our monetary policy normalisation. As of the beginning of the month of March, the APP portfolio has been declining at a measured and predictable pace of 15 billion per month on average, and will continue to do so until the end of June. The subsequent pace, after June 23, will be determined over time, and the Governing Council will regularly reassess the pace to ensure that it remains consistent with the overall monetary policy strategy and stance to preserve market functioning and to maintain firm control over short-term money market conditions. So let me conclude. With war in Europe and high inflation requiring immediate action, policymakers may be inclined to divert their attention from long-term challenges. But we must all strive to keep up our efforts to address the existential crisis of climate change. For us at the ECB, this means continuing to make progress on our climate roadmap. This week, on the 23rd to be precise, we will publish the first climate-related financial disclosures of the Eurosystem's corporate sector assets held for monetary policy purposes, and of the ECB's own funds and the staff pension fund. We will be joined in the coming weeks by all Eurosystem central banks, which will also disclose climate information on their own euro-denominated non-monetary policy portfolios. Besides helping us be more transparent about our climate impact, these disclosures help track our progress towards supporting within our mandate a decarbonisation path in line with the goals of the Paris Agreement and EU climate neutrality objectives. They will show, for example, that our corporate sector portfolio is becoming less carbon intensive, partly thanks to our efforts to tilt purchases towards issuers with a better climate performance. Over time, as more and better quality data become available, we will improve the level of details and expand reporting to include other portfolios and asset classes. Better and harmonized climate disclosures for all asset classes would help not only the ECB, but also the entire financial sector to better account for climate-related risks. With that, I thank you for your attention, and I now look forward to your questions. Thank you.